Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles. Have you ever experienced one of those instants when your whole reality flips upside down, as if all the truths you held dear, all the foundations of your life, suddenly collapse right under you? That was exactly how I felt, frozen in the hallway, clutching a glass of water halfway filled, squeezing it so hard I feared it would break in my grip. I wasn't meant to overhear that conversation. I was simply passing by the bedroom, our shared bedroom, heading toward the kitchen when I caught my wife's voice, tender and private, clearly not intended for my ears. I don't even feel like embracing him these days. She let out a laugh, that harsh, aloof giggle that revealed she had already decided her feelings about the person she was discussing. I halted completely. She was speaking on the phone, stretched out on our bed, facing away from the door. Her legs were crossed at the ankles, dangling casually back and forth, as if she carried no burdens at all. I couldn't budge. I remained there, listening intently, my heart racing wildly. Her tone lowered to a murmur, yet I heard each syllable clearly. I realize, it's just that I feel nothing when he touches me. It's like I simply endure it, you understand. It's not. Thrilling, a pause, followed by another gentle, conspiratorial chuckle. Naturally I do, I just need to be cautious. He's not foolish. I breathed out gradually through my nostrils, suppressing the fury rising within me. The statements themselves weren't the most painful. It was her manner, the relaxed detachment, the arrogant assurance, as though she wasn't merely dismissing me but had already moved beyond me, treating me like some amusing anecdote. My fist tightened around the glass, and briefly I considered storming in and insisting on explanations. Who was she speaking with? What did "be cautious" imply? But then a chill settled over me. A direct confrontation wouldn't alter the facts. It wouldn't erase what I just learned. No, I required a different strategy. She no longer wished to embrace me? Very well, she wouldn't need to. She experienced no spark from my touch? Excellent. Because from this day on, she would never experience it again. She assumed I was some naive idiot, a foreseeable husband who would either explode in rage or collapse into pitiful appeals for her love. She had no clue what I could do. So I chose a path I never imagined taking. I turned away, retraced my steps down the hall, placed the glass on the counter, and allowed her remarks to embed themselves in my thoughts like a gradually spreading venom. From that point onward, my wife ceased to exist in my world. She desired separation. She was about to discover what genuine, heart-wrenching separation truly meant. And when the moment arrived, she would deeply regret ever undervaluing me. She simply wasn't aware of it yet. The power of quiet can be the most cutting tool imaginable. I didn't shout, I didn't weep, I didn't dispute, I simply ceased inquiring about her day, ceased reaching for her hand, ceased putting in any effort. I turned into a specter in our house. And initially, she didn't even register it. The initial few days, she was too absorbed in her private bubble, messaging, grinning at her screen, singing lightly to herself while preparing for work. She likely figured I was merely exhausted, preoccupied, or in one of those phases where husbands retreat without cause. Ideal. She suspected nothing. During meals, I would sit opposite her, consuming food automatically, avoiding casual chatter. She hardly looked up from her food. In bed, when she once nestled against me, I turned away, creating a vast, icy divide between us. She uttered nothing, not at that stage. It required a full week before she began to detect it. "Hey," she called one morning as I stood at the sink, cleaning my coffee mug. "Are you all right?" I tilted my head a bit, met her gaze directly, and smiled. Yes, why wouldn't I be? It was an authentic smile, but lacking the warmth she knew. There was no affection in it. She blinked. "I don't know, you've seemed distant," I shrugged. "Just reflecting on some matters." That was all, no additional details. She paused, expecting me to expand, but I remained silent. I brushed past her, picked up my keys, and headed to work. Let her ponder. Let her experience the unease. The same unease I had endured in that hallway. Overhearing my wife declare she no longer wished to touch me. The minor wounds start. It was the subtle actions that affected her first. She always enjoyed our film evenings. We'd snuggle on the sofa, share a throw, and view whatever she selected. So when she returned home one Friday evening and discovered me already viewing a show alone, I noticed the brief surprise on her face. "You began without me?" she questioned. I nodded. "Didn't assume you'd want to join?" I didn't stop the film, didn't shift to make room. She lingered for a moment, then settled at the opposite end of the sofa, stiff and uncomfortable. Perfect. The following day, I arrived home later. Much later than normal, she was waiting. "Where have you been?" she inquired. Leaning on the kitchen counter, arms folded, I shrugged, placing my keys down. "Out." "With whom?" Just some friends, her brow furrowed more. Friends, I held her stare, my face neutral. Yes, friends, then I moved past her, leaving her to her own speculations. For the first time in ages, I detected a hint of anxiety in her eyes, uncertainty. She wasn't accustomed to being overlooked. She was used to my concern, my questions, my pursuit of her focus, but I no longer filled that position. She desired me to fade into the background of her existence. All right. She could attempt surviving in the quiet. Her vulnerabilities start to appear. The significant change occurred after 2 weeks. By then, I wasn't merely silent. I was unavailable, physically present, yes, but emotionally, mentally, I had vanished. I navigated around her as if she were an inanimate object, communicated in brief, courteous sentences, never started discussions. And gradually, she began to crumble. "Would you like to dine out tonight?" she suggested one evening, attempting to sound relaxed. "No thanks," she paused. "We could visit that new restaurant you mentioned last month." I looked at her briefly. That was a probe. She wanted to check if I still valued us, if I would eagerly accept a pleasant outing, desperate to regain her favor. I refused. "Not in the mood," I replied, then returned to my reading. The following morning, she lightly touched my arm as I dressed. I recoiled, not overly, just sufficiently. Sufficient for her to notice, sufficient for her to sense the dismissal gradually filling our home. She withdrew as if scorched. The initial major split. She was beginning to bear the burden of my detachment. The onset of her urgency. Several nights later, I overheard her in the kitchen, vigorously cleaning the surfaces, a sign of her anxiety. Then she surprised me. She took a bottle of wine and 2 glasses, entered the living room, and placed them on the table. I glanced up from my phone. "What's this for?" I asked. She offered a tentative smile. "Figured we could share a drink. It's been a while." She was attempting to repair what she hadn't realized was damaged until too late. I looked at the wine, then at her. Then I rose. "Heading to sleep," I said, stretching. Her expression fell, not drastically, but noticeably. I caught the quick disappointment, the fear hastily hidden. I left her there alone with 2 glasses of wine she would now consume solo. And that's when I realized. She was beginning to comprehend, beginning to sense it. The isolation, the void. The gradual, oppressive awareness that she no longer held importance. That her company didn't thrill me. That I could pass full days without a thought of her. And it was devastating her. I lay awake that night, gazing at the ceiling, hearing her quietly close the cabinets as she stored the glasses. For the first time in ages, I rested deeply. Because this was merely the start. It occurred faster than anticipated. Her urgency was already emerging, tiny fractures in her composed detachment, a stare that held too long. A query repeated because her mind was elsewhere, too consumed by her own remorse. She wasn't familiar with being disregarded, but she still didn't realize I was aware. That shifted 3 weeks after I eavesdropped on her saying she no longer wanted my hugs. That was the evening I verified the infidelity. The instant the reality struck me, she had been prudent. I'll admit that. Late messages, erased, her device, always screened down, extended hours at work, gradual, distributed over months. But not prudent enough. One evening I was in bed browsing my phone. When I noticed it, a notification appeared on her display while she showered, a brief message preview. "Tonight was amazing, can't stop replaying it." The sender. Simply the initial M. I gazed at it, my pulse remained steady. I had already guessed. This was merely proof. She emerged from the bathroom, drying her hair with a towel, unaware. She missed the screen illumination. I said nothing, but a change occurred inside me. Until then, I had engaged in a gradual strategy. Emotional retreat, allowing her to experience the consequences of her actions. But now I possessed advantage. Now it was time to shatter her. The initial direct attack. The next day I reported ill to work. She departed for her job, sending a casual air kiss as if all was ordinary. I waited precisely 20 minutes before opening my laptop and beginning. Step 1. Identify M. It wasn't difficult. A glance at our phone statement revealed a recurring number, late hours. Then I reviewed her online profiles, not open, but individuals are careless. They follow patterns, and there it was, Michael. A middle manager at a firm connected to hers. Attractive in a refined, artificial manner. A man who likely felt invincible. I browsed his page, examining his polished existence. Luxury trips, custom clothing, the self-satisfied grin of someone believing he was triumphant. I nearly chuckled. He had no concept that the rules had shifted, collecting proof. In the following days, I operated as both invisible and a pursuer. I did what she believed I couldn't. I accessed their communications. I tailed her once, maintaining distance as she stayed late at an upscale hotel. I even attached a compact GPS unit to her vehicle. Nothing unlawful, just a basic tracker showing her locations. And the concluding element. I engaged a professional investigator, because I intended not only to reveal them, I planned to devastate them. It required under a week for the investigator to provide all I required. Images, conversations, even recordings of them arriving and departing the same suite. I possessed everything, and I could have confronted her immediately, could have flung the proof at her, observed her falter and plead, trapped her in her deceptions, but that would have been too merciful. She had gradually ruined our union. I would gradually ruin her. The setup is complete. The evening prior to my action, she did something surprising. She sat close to me on the sofa, near, as if attempting to close the divide she had formed. "Hey," she said gently, almost timidly. I regarded her, face neutral. "Yes," she paused, then chewed her lip. "I sense we've been disconnected recently." She had the nerve to voice that. "Perhaps," I responded vaguely. She exhaled. "I don't want us to grow further apart." "Grow apart? We were already oceans separated, darling. You just hadn't noticed yet, so I acted harshly." I smiled, gently, comforting like old times. And I stated, "Me neither." Her tension eased. She appeared comforted, as if she had regained something. She believed she had reclaimed me. She was unaware that tomorrow would devastate her. The exposure. I delayed until she prepared for sleep before acting. She was in the bathroom, brushing her teeth, when I set the folder on her pillow. Within were all details, every message, every image, every capture, every falsehood. She returned to the room, humming lightly, then stopped. Her gaze shifted to the folder, then to me. "What's that?" she asked, her tone strained. I remained silent. I simply observed. She lifted the folder. Her hands shook as she unsealed it. Then she scanned the photographs, the messages, the irrefutable evidence of her disloyalty. Her breathing grew rapid. Her mouth opened, but no words emerged. At last, she raised her eyes to me, her complexion ashen. "How did you?" Her voice broke. She couldn't complete it. She understood it was irrelevant. I had ensnared her, and she was entirely, completely trapped. I leaned in, elbows on knees, and allowed the quiet to extend. Then I smiled, but it held no kindness. It was the smile of someone who had triumphed. "You don't need to embrace me anymore," I said, my tone steady, nearly tender. "You don't need to fake it. You're liberated now." She parted her lips, perhaps to refute, perhaps to implore, but I raised a hand. "I won't debate this. I won't raise my voice. I won't inquire why." I permitted the statements to settle. Let her absorb their impact. Because I no longer care. The decisive strike. The ending. She drew in a sharp inhale, eyes moistening, her grip tightening on the folder as if it could shield her from the chaos she had unleashed. She had anticipated fury, a confrontation, perhaps even frantic appeals. What she received was absolute apathy, and that shattered her, because in that instant she understood she had already forfeited me. Remorse is a gradual toxin. It doesn't destroy quickly. It persists, infects, expands until it engulfs all. I recognized the instant my wife viewed the proof. The instant her breath caught, her hands quivered, and her face lost all color. It had started. The disintegration, the remorse, the steady, unavoidable ruin of the existence she believed remained hers. And I intended to witness every moment, the initial indicators of alarm. She attempted to dismiss it initially. I could observe her mind racing, searching for a way out. A fabrication to conceal her deeds. "Wait," she stuttered, raising the folder as if she could delete its contents. "This isn't. You misunderstand. It's not as it appears." I chuckled, a true, sincere laugh. She recoiled at it. "Not as it appears," I echoed, shaking my head. "Please, don't demean us both." Her lips parted, then shut. She realized escape was impossible, so she shifted approach. She softened her gaze, allowed her voice to quiver, as if she were abruptly an innocent sufferer. "It was an error," she murmured. "I wasn't rational. I never meant to harm you, I promise." I cocked my head, pretending interest. "How many occasions, then?" She stilled. I extended the quiet, forced her to endure it. I could nearly watch her weigh whether to deceive. But she must have known that with this evidence I likely knew all. Her lip quivered. "For months," she confessed, barely audible, "for months." That admission struck hard, I already knew, but hearing her say it, watching shame distort her features. It solidified it. I nodded deliberately. "For months of errors, impressive." Her eyes glistened now. "It wasn't that way." She attempted once more, advancing, extending for my hand. I retreated, a minor step, but sufficient. Her frame stiffened. That was when it truly registered. I was indifferent. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't pleading. I wasn't clinging to anything, and that terrified her more than any outburst she anticipated. The icy detachment that destroyed her. The subsequent days were a triumph of disregard. I didn't depart, I didn't quarrel, I didn't respond, I merely occupied the space with her. Detached, remote, inaccessible, and she despised it. At first she persisted in justifying, persisted in seeking proximity, as if we could restore what she had incinerated. She prepared my morning coffee, I dumped it out. She inquired about dinner, I got delivery for myself. She attempted to sit near me on the sofa, pretending normalcy. I rose and exited. Each small dismissal wounded her more. She expected rage. She expected accusations, insults, demands for truth. But I offered none because she wasn't worth the energy. And I ensured she sensed that, the instant she fully shattered. One evening, roughly a week post-exposure, I heard her weeping in the kitchen. Not subdued, manipulative cries for pity. No, this was authentic. I remained in the living room, scrolling my phone, acting oblivious. She was collapsing. Right nearby, mere feet away. And I did nothing. Then at last she erupted. She charged into the living room, hair disheveled, eyes swollen, voice trembling with anger. "Are you really planning to disregard me eternally?" she yelled, her fists balled. I gradually raised my eyes, met hers, and smirked. Yes, a single word, that sufficed, her body rigid as if struck. "Why not simply shout at me?" she pressed. "Why not argue, explode, react somehow?" I placed my phone aside. Leaning in, "You don't merit my fury," I stated. My tone even composed. "You don't merit my attention, you're insignificant to me." Tears formed in her eyes. "I was foolish," she murmured. "I believed." "You believed I'd never go," I completed. "You believed I'd remain forever. That regardless of your deceptions, your nights elsewhere, I'd wait like an idiot." She gulped deeply, her breaths uneven. "I was mistaken," I sighed lightly, nodding. "Yes, you were." That was the moment she grasped she had failed. Not only our relationship, not only me, but her own sense of self, observing the barriers closing around her. I allowed her 2 additional weeks of quiet, 2 weeks of her frantic efforts to draw me back, 2 weeks of her existing amid the ruins she built. Then I executed my ultimate action. I gathered my belongings, not everything, just necessities, enough for her to see my departure was permanent. She arrived home that evening to see me closing my final bag. She halted in the entrance, eyes broad. "Wait," I continued. "Where are you headed?" she asked, voice faint. I offered no reply. She approached, hands unsteady. Can we discuss?" I lifted my bag, placed it on my shoulder, and at last, I faced her and I smiled. The identical cold, detached smile from the envelope night. "We already have." Then I passed her. She didn't pursue. She didn't attempt to halt me because she knew nothing remained to express, and as I crossed that threshold into a life without her, I felt only fulfillment. She had sought distance. She had sought passion. She had sought release from my contact. Now she possessed all she desired, and it was the harshest penalty I could impose. Remorse is a persistent shadow. It stays in the stillness. It resonates in the voids where affection once resided. It chokes the atmosphere, rendering each inhale more burdensome, and my former wife, was suffocating in it. I ensured that. The initial glimpse of her altered existence. I didn't merely depart that night. I removed myself entirely from her world, blocked her contact, ignored messages, dismissed shared acquaintances approaching for her. I became an apparition, a person she once shared life with, a person she once possessed, and now a person forever beyond reach. She had selected her course, and I permitted her to traverse it solo. The widespread consequences. It wasn't long before repercussions arrived. Her infidelity wasn't revealed solely to me. I ensured widespread knowledge. Her relatives, her circle, her coworkers. I forwarded the proof to Michael's spouse, who swiftly demolished his reality. Their illusion crumbled. Michael's wife initiated divorce promptly, and reportedly she claimed all possible. Regarding my ex, she soon learned her lover had no interest in building a life with someone stripped bare. Their connection endured 2 weeks after my exit. Then he vanished too, and she was genuinely, utterly isolated. The concluding strike. Months went by. I had advanced, secured my own residence, a clean beginning, fresh habits, new tranquility, an existence solely mine. Then one night a message arrived from her. She had discovered a method to contact me. I examined my phone, reviewing the text repeatedly. "Can we speak, please? I need to see you." I nearly laughed. It was so expected. She had pursued her desires and failed. She had exchanged stability for fleeting excitement, and now she sought reversal, to alter history, to rescue the debris. But bridges once destroyed remain gone. I didn't reply. I didn't compose a word. I merely blocked the contact. Let her dwell in her remorse. Let her endure her decisions. Because I had prevailed, and she would carry that knowledge forever. The closing reflection. They say vengeance is most effective when chilled. But this surpassed vengeance. This was fairness. She had risked it all and failed. And the cruelest aspect. She had only herself to hold accountable.